Off? No, just kidding. All right. We'll wait for James to come sit down. I'll remind everybody that we're being recorded, so to use your green button.
And your inside voice.
Now, good afternoon, everybody. This is a meeting of the Committee to Approve Public Art, and we are here to entertain a redesign and other alterations to the already approved question mark public art sculpture at Sane Living on Matilaha Street. So we did not get a packet. I understand there are materials, and if we could get those passed out right now, James, is that possible?
It's one of a kind.
Yeah, they just brought a model, and so there's not any materials. It's just the model.
There's no packet?
There's no full packet.
No maquette.
Because Ray, you had told me you were making copies of things.
Well, we have what we have. You want to keep this separate from the signage?
I'm sorry.
The signage? Start with this. You want to start with that? Okay.
All right, then sans material for us to review. We're going to ask the two presenters, Ray Serino, the artist, and Aubrey Balkine, the conceiver of the art piece, to just carry forth with a presentation. And we do need some kind of documentation, so a packet is pretty critical. As I told them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you need to come forward, and you need to speak right into that microphone. You can adjust it as you like, Aubrey, for your height.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The two main areas that we focused on was the location of where exactly the model, the sculpture would be, because we have in the past it was facing east, and it has been facing west. So we sort of have done a model of the exact size of the actual area in which the sculpture is going to go. And the interesting thing is when we put the tree that's existing now into place, we were able to locate the sculpture in a much better way in relation to the tree, so that it actually feels like the tree is and the sculpture are working together. The other difference from the last time is that this sculpture goes from east to west, whereas the previous one went from west to east. The other interesting thing is that in going from east to west, the sculpture is it actually highlights the fact that Ojai has probably in the US the most famous east-west valley. Most of the valleys in the United States are north-south. So this is actually on the east-west axis. So it's slightly tilted. And the last reason why it is actually really great this way is that the whole property, actually, most of the people are going to probably be sitting on the east looking west, because they'll be at the restaurant, outdoor part of the restaurant. So they'll be able to actually look at the sculpture from the front to the back as opposed to from the back to the front. Also interesting about it is that when you do look at it from where they're sitting, the highest part, we actually switched the way the images work. So when you're looking at it, before it was actually being looked at from seeing nature first, and here you actually see it actually in chronological order in terms of you seeing what's today and you seeing backwards to what has been around for 4.5 billion years. You're also able to actually look through the front of the images and see the images at the back as well, through looking at it. Why don't you take it around so they could see? You're actually at good eye level.
Yes, we'd be looking that way.
So
Yeah. And
just
so there's
before you
no,
go around.
There's no text on the bottom there? Yes, there is. Oh,
Yeah. Why
okay.
don't you start with the main entrances?
Need to be at the microphone.
Thank you.
The main entrance, come here. The main entrance is walking into the buildings over here. And the main entrance is when you walk in,
Say something.
you,
Why don't you turn it to face us as though
Okay.
we were on the street looking at the building? I think that will give us a clearer perspective on
Okay.
how it's going to work.
okay.
Thank you.
So it's this way. Right, so the entrance is over here,
These help too.
Mm-hmm.
and when the building is behind it here. So a lot of people will actually walk because of the farmers market, and most of downtown is on this side. They'll probably walk this way, and then walk in the front that way. Then when the entrance to the building is over here, so when you look at it from the building, you're actually looking through these images to the street.
And are there
Okay,
going to be titles on the bottom of those things?
Yes,
the way there was
so
actually?
those, we didn't
John,
have
would you
time.
repeat what you said? I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure.
Well, I know on the older one, there were titles on the
Right.
bottom that told people what was.
Right. So the titles on this version is going to be on both sides of the stainless steel, because people will walk all the way around this. So this side is going to be nature. Then instead of sapiens, we've changed the word to people. I think it's a little easier. And over here is AI, artificial intelligence. And it'll be on both sides on the white.
Okay. So is that white part like a footing? How is
It's
it held down to the?
Yeah, the white part is concrete footing, of which this goes into. So it's held by the concrete. And the white makes the question mark very, very vivid.
Yeah, I know we've had problems with vandalization of public art in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little concerned that people are going to be trying to figure out how to destroy this once you put it in, and I'm just wondering how you can make it as sturdy as possible.
This, in terms of its structure being,
Yeah,
is that you?
just
Oh, you can definitely put that up here on the table. You don't need to have it there on the podium. And these maps that you gave us really are very clear, showing us how it's positioned with the building. So we're fine. And everybody look at all three pages, and you get really good an aerial view from two different perspectives.
Okay, as far as strength goes, anytime you make a panel like this stainless steel curve, it becomes super strong. Anything in nature curves, and it makes it a lot stronger. This particular metal is going to be 3/16 stainless steel. As I was designing this, I was considering how this is going to be safe for people, how it could be vandalized. It's pretty much pretty rock solid. I mean, there's no pieces that you could like take a crowbar to and bend it. If they did, that would be a way of probably doing it. But I think as far as like even taking it, we're going to be putting holes and anchors in the concrete, which will have probably a piece of rebar going all the way through it. So it's kind of like sewing it into the concrete. And also, it's going to have a pretty substantial concrete because we don't want it to crack because of settling in the landscape. As far as stainless steel, it lasts 20,000 years. It's not going to rust. It's not going to stain. I'm going to probably come back on a regular basis. If I see something, let's say someone takes a graffiti to it, all I need is an abrasive brush on my grinder, and it comes right off. I clean pots and pans like that when the rice sticks, if you can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically probably the best material you could possibly use in this situation, and that's about all I know about it. It's
So right now, we're talking about that the way in which the question mark is placed has been changed. And I will point out to you that the model that we have in front of us, in addition to being an exact replica of the actual space, that I would like Ray to also talk about. It's been taken down 10% in total size to accommodate this area. The original design was too large for the area. And also talk about the coastal live oak, which we didn't know there was a coastal live oak in this area. And since we have met many times and talked at length, you had talked about a bench in this area, but we're not seeing it here. So is that been scrapped?
You want to talk to Aubrey about that?
So these are the things we want you to address: the bench, and the need for the size to come down, and the coastal live oak.
Right. Yes. So the size is 10% smaller. It gives it more breathing room in the space. It's still quite a large sculpture. The bench is, why don't you point where the bench is, on this side, on the wall.
Oh, the bench is, let's see.
There's a 12-foot bench.
There's a bench that goes along the wall of the building right here.
And there's a sidewalk between that bench and the sculpture. The bench I'm talking about is the one that's on the plot of what we're approving.
We're thinking about one small, like maybe a 4-footer right here.
It's a 5-footer.
Okay. How about 4.5? How about right here? Did you want to have one on this side?
We are looking at the possibility of putting one on that side too. Also a 5-foot bench. So people could sit and look at the sculpture, because there's quite a lot to look at.
No, there was another idea.
So if I put this here, would you fold it to be the approximate sign and position of the bench? Is it going to be that long?
No.
All right, so I want you to fold it so it'll be what we're looking at, what we're actually approving.
This one is that
Yeah, we don't need to look at that one. We want to look at the one over here.
What's the scale of this model?
1 inch equals a foot, so this is about 8 inches.
So
5
a
inches.
5-inch bench would be about like that, and it's going to be in that position. Okay, we just want to be able to see. Are you going to put another bench there now?
probably.
But in a way, that's separate from the public art piece, is it not? I mean, that's the, if you will, the decor around and about it, but it isn't really a part of the
It
public
is,
art.
but when we approved it, we approved this, and we didn't know there was anything else at the time on the site, and visually, how you affects it, the movement. When we look at something, we want to see the whole thing, which is why I talked to you about being sure to put the bench on there. And now you're adding another one all of a sudden, which we hadn't talked about. Is that,
We were
it's,
considering this one. The reason, this one, the reason why we weren't 100% sure of this one is that the afternoon sun is going to be on your back. Sun on your back might not be the best thing.
okay.
This tree will cover this whole area in shadow in the afternoon. In the morning, this part of, actually in the morning, this will be covered. This area will be covered in the morning too.
And then there is a bench, which is not on this plot, across the sidewalk along the wall. So there's like a triangle of benches.
Well, I personally think that's quite effective because it provides a visual frame for the artwork. So I have no problem with that at all.
I agree.
The
Yeah.
interesting idea here is that this bench and this bench would actually not have a back to it, maybe.
Right.
So that you could actually be sitting on the side, you could be on the sidewalk and sort of
Looking
half-
across the
half-
street.
and half, you could have your foot like half out.
Yeah.
It's like makes the whole space permeable.
Do you want to tell everyone who the artist is that you have in mind for creating these benches?
Yes.
Oh, but you have to go back over there. You know, we need a roving mic for these presentations. We really do.
Yeah, Ryan is going to be doing the benches. They're made out of redwood. They're part of the fire as well, and they are organic benches. They're not like trimmed, so they're very beautiful.
So I think it's important to know that
Sure.
we have reclaimed Thomas firewood by our artist that's doing the Ojai
This
Valley
is
and
the
the
same
spa
artist of the spa,
for
right.
these benches, which is really a
I like
nice
the
thing
idea,
to do.
too, of not having backs to these benches, because I think that will make the whole thing flow
Yeah.
instead of providing a barrier. I think that's very nice. Yeah.
So there are three other things that we're going to be talking with the presenters about, but if we can get questions on just this, and then if everyone's satisfied with this, the positioning, any other questions on that? John?
I'm just very happy with it. I really like the way you turned it around. I think it fits better around the tree and everything about it.
Absolutely,
is-
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Marcy, do you want
I have a question.
to do your?
The people section.
Oh, we're not talking about inside the design
Oh,
yet.
okay,
We're
just
only addressing
position.
location right now. Do you have a question
Location.
about that?
No, I think it's
Okay.
great.
All right, so you have another, no. So we're all clear and find what you've presented here to be not problematic. Now, the next area that you want to talk about that you have adjusted is the actual filigree or cutouts within the stainless steel structure. So if you would just address that and the words on the base, these are changes, then we can kind of wrap our head around that.
Okay. Do you want to?
Yeah, I want to throw it on. One of the things that Aubrey did, he made me become more of an artist with this, because I was doing all this in Photoshop, and I was like duplicating things, making it do twists and turns. But I think that when people look at this, in particular the people, which you're asking about, every single person's different, and it's all done by hand. I spent hours and hours chiseling the side with the Photoshop and making it all blend and making it kind of weave with the flow of nature. And so if you looked at these, when they get blown up another 10 times, you'll actually see details that of people might see themselves in there. And that was part of the idea, is to put a human element to it rather than having a computerized element to it. And I thought that was really cool. It took a long time to do that after we met, but I think we've also tried different techniques of having people get larger and their heads get bigger, but it didn't look good. So we kept with the idea of people looking like they belong together as a community or as a group. And we changed the name from sapiens to people. Instead of putting humans, because human has the word man in it, and I think people is more universal. And that's pretty much some of the things that I changed.
Okay, so just for the group, I happen to have my folder with me, and this is the original cutouts, were the grasses to the humans to very simple idea about artificial intelligence or digital, whatever. So you can see that they've added a face and a word into the sculpting here. They've added words up at the top of the humans in the middle section, and they've added, they've changed out and altered, probably the more extensive thing besides the face is the grasses, because there's, it's hard for me to see at this angle, but there's additional things there. So in addition to approving the new location and the new size, we also have to agree that what we originally approved, which was this, has now been altered. So we'll have discussion about that. Barbara, any questions about that?
The question I have is something that I raised when we talked, when we met with you, and that is at the upper edge in two places, here and here, there's what appears to the uneducated, uninformed eye, a 3 and what almost looks like a clock face with a single,
That'll
except
help.
that's not how the audience is going to see it.
See, it says we and me.
It says we and me if you're looking at it from behind it.
I'm gonna make the reverse.
The words will actually read both from both sides. And the way we're going to do that is to actually sandwich 3 pieces together over there. So there's going to be one piece that's going to be a color, and the cutouts, you'll see the cutout through it. So let's say the cutout was red, then you would see the words we from one side, and you'll see it we from the other side as well.
Well, I think I understand that. It's not apparent from the model, and
Right.
also you've now introduced another element, which is color. Are we to understand that in addition to the stainless steel, there's going to be color in this?
Very likely be a color. It might be white. We haven't really finalized the color.
But that's a major feature.
Right.
We can't approve this if we don't know what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, this isn't something where, see, what we're approving,
Right.
and what we go and look at finally, when it's all installed, the committee actually goes and looks at this to see that it matches up with what you presented.
Right.
So if what we're looking at, what Michael is saying is, if what we're looking at is not what you presented, that doesn't work. Your presentation that you're making to us now has to be what you are telling us this is going to look like. That's what we're evaluating. So what color? And it doesn't sound like it's definitive. And for me, just off the top of my head, without being able to see it, it doesn't sound all that appealing. I mean, I think one of the things that I really liked was the flow of the stainless steel that was uninterrupted by anything other than stainless steel. And that's what we approved. You've changed the design inside, added a face, which is a huge change. Can you see that okay, Michael?
Yeah, I have no objection to that. That
Yeah,
seems
and
to work.
that
But it's
can be
these
okay.
two elements that
But now you're adding color,
confuse me.
so we're a little confusing for
Are
us.
they going to be white, are they going to be red, or are they going to be stainless steel?
Are you talking about the letters?
I'm talking about the letters, the ones that,
And that's what
find
you meant when you said
cryptographic.
color, correct?
yeah. Okay, so are those going to be white or red or both in some way? And are they going to be the only splashes of color on the entire piece?
And the white would probably be my first choice. The only problem would be is we need to make sure against the stainless steel, the white is readable.
So you want the letters to pop? Is that why you're thinking of putting
Well,
color? Because you want those to pop out?
To be
So it's more like signage?
it's what gets people interested when they walk by. They see a we and a me, and there's a third word there, go, above the head.
Yeah.
It sort of attracts people to it. I mean, if we need to remove that, we could.
I like the lettering. I think it's pretty central to the project, too. You need to have
Right.
some kind of an explanation in there of what's going on. And I don't have any problem with it being colored.
With the color. Do you want to talk at all about?
I think that, I'm just speaking from how I would experience it. I don't know if this would be universally true for everyone.
Right.
My eye, if that's like the lettering and then the red behind it or whatever, that's where my eye will go first. And I personally don't think I would need some kind of a signal like that to stop and admire this piece. I think the scale of it, I think the intricacy of it and everything, I think that's what the attraction is. And I think the lettering, and especially with colors, is a distraction. I don't think that, and it's almost like, I think the piece, it really gets you to contemplate and everything. I think by adding the letters, you're almost dictating where someone's mind has to go with
I
this.
agree.
And how this should be experienced. I don't think it's necessary.
Now, are you
I
talking
think
about
it's
color
gilding the
and
lily
letter,
here. Both.
words and
Both.
color, both, okay.
Well,
Just to make sure I'm
if
hearing
it
you.
weren't, I'm not as opposed to the lettering if you leave it alone. It's like everything
that's how
else.
I
It's
feel.
just,
Yeah.
if you would just leave it alone, not
Oh, my-
put a color
Yeah.
background to it or whatever, just
yeah.
leave it open,
Yeah.
like everything else is open.
Thank you,
And then people
Marcy.
can discover it, you know? I don't think it's the first thing their eye will go to. And I think then, when they're thinking about it and they're taking it all in, then they'll notice those letters and they'll discover it, and then they'll think more about it. Might add another layer to, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, a white would do that, because the white is going to be closer to, in color, to the
The
stainless steel.
stainless steel. Um,
And you're not actually having another color because the base is white as well.
the base is white paint, it's cement.
Right.
What kind of a cement? Is it maybe you would know, John, you know how there's cement that has a lot of aggregate in it and it's very rough? This is like a smoother,
White Portland cement.
okay, so
And it will
it's
stay white.
smooth.
All right, let's get comments from Barbara on the color and the addition of letters, anything about this.
Okay. I don't care for the letters or the color at all. I just feel that it's too much. And I really feel that it should stay in the stainless steel. No color.
Okay?
I would agree with that. I think Marcy's point that that this in a way diminishes what you've presented, and also the fact that you have verbal signals at the base, that really says the same thing that you're saying up above. So I don't think you need that. I think that's overkill. And I think that it takes your eye away from and diminishes the impact and the flow of the rest of the design. So I would urge you to eliminate those words or letters or whatever that they are, because I think they're a distraction, and I think they diminish the impact of the work, and I think they're redundant because you have the words down below.
Okay, and so, Michael, is that?
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I really thank you, all of you, the three of you, and for what you've said, because you very much feel the same way. Now, I could see my way to approving the words, because I understand from having spent some time with the both of you that you're very married to that, and it's very symbolic for the organization, those particular words and the way they're written, the kind of script that you've chosen for them. But to paint them is it really is jarring for me to think about. White, no, it's just so cold. Red, to me, and all of a sudden we're doing like putting little lights around there and little neon thing going, oh, look here, look here, look here. And it stops what can happen. One of the most wonderful things about public art is that it's general. It's not specific. It allows the viewer to have a conversation with it, and it's not a forced conversation. There's a willingness on the part of the artist to allow for interpretation. And I think that the first thing you showed us did that in spades. I mean, it just almost like gave you tingles to look at it, because it was just like there for you to kind of crawl inside of. So I think the me and the we would pretty much be okay if they're left stainless steel, but I will have a hard time approving it if you insist on coloring it. I just don't see that as really public arty. I see it more than it turns into a sign. So that's just, you've heard our reaction. Now there's a third area, which we've covered, I think, size, so we don't have to go over that. But you also want to make some changes to the signage. You told us you were going to mount a sign, and we approved it as part of the project. That was a quote from Socrates, am I correct?
Correct.
And you have changed that. Now, have you brought that so we can look at the change? And for the group to know that part of the change of this sign is that they want to incorporate the sign we require into this. So they're going to tell you about that now.
So we thought.
Can you speak from the microphone, please?
Is it possible to copy that, James, when we're done? We don't have to do it right now? Okay.
Yeah, we don't need
When
to
we're
do it
done.
now.
So we wanted to have this quote, which is a really interesting quote about knowledge, and what form knowledge should take, because the whole idea of the question here is that we do intend having a whole program that's based on people trying to find out how to actually behave in a world where artificial intelligence becomes a big part of what we think is going to be a bigger part of the world, and we need to give that some air to have people have discussions. So the quote is actually within the question mark, and then the plaque is the dot of the question mark visually.
So some of the things that I would ask you to also describe as this makes its way around, and then we'll take everyone for questions, is please to give us the exact dimensions of this, to please give us the exact location that this is going to go, because it's changed from what we originally approved.
Right.
And also, this does not indicate how it would be framed or what material you're using or font or color. And it really needs to comply with what we talked about earlier. So, James, I hope that you're getting every word of this down this time, because we don't have a packet, and we have to have a record of this conversation in very specific
Video.
terms.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're also going to request for the property file, we'll need to get a copy of final plans for this
Right.
that comply with all
Okay,
this. Because
good.
it
Thank
it
you,
is a
James.
lot, yeah.
So could we ask,
Well, let it go. Yeah,
Okay.
you want to start? Yeah, Michael,
Yeah.
go ahead.
so
I've
is
seen
the
it.
quote going to be on the ground in this area here?
No, the quote's going to be, where's the
Well, that's
quote?
what it seems to be from what you just handed us, so I don't understand what you just handed us.
Okay. What we're handing you is the actual image itself, so.
It's on the building.
So it'll be a sign on the building, is that
On
what
the
you're telling us?
building.
It's going to be like along here. These kind of stick out, and they want one sign here, and they want another sign there. The one sign they want, we wouldn't approve, signage has to approve it. And the other one is the one that incorporates our plaque. Okay, sorry to do that off mic, but I was trying to explain to him
Right.
by showing him on the map here. But Aubrey, the languaging that is not what it has to be. It doesn't say City of Ojai, all the
Oh,
things
yeah,
that you and I
you're
went
right.
over, it's not on there.
Right. I will supply, basically, the language says, is it, I can't remember the first 2 or 3 words, and then it says, of the City of Ojai. Public art program of
We
the
need to
city.
see it, the way it's going to be laid out for approval.
You know, one suggestion, I'm kind of thinking, we're going to talk next about the Ojai Valley Inn, asking to come back the week of October 10th. And perhaps we might want to give some feedback, but have the final documentation of this project
Yes.
come back at that
Yes,
meeting.
and I'm thinking that too. But I want to be real clear here so that when you do come back, because I think that the direction this is going in is that this is not prepared, that you won't come back and still not be prepared. Because I've spent a lot of time, and I've gone over all the things that you don't
Right.
have.
Right.
So I want to make it real clear and maybe follow up with it written in minutes so that you have it written down, what you have to come back with. Does that make sense to everybody?
Absolutely, I would think that's crucial, because, again, we're being presented something that's changed and is incomplete, and we can't approve anything on that basis, it's just
Yeah.
a fact.
Yeah. So for the signage, and I will work with you and James and Ray on creating a list of exactly what's missing from this presentation and what you must come back to us with, because we're giving you extension, and at some point, we have to we want to close this out for you as well. This is a distraction for what you're doing. I know you have opening date, you have a lot going on. So we want to try to help you to not have to keep coming back. Okay?
That's fair enough.
So on the signage, the exact size, a depiction of the material and what it's going to look like, how it's going to be. Can I have that large thing here? You know, this isn't I know this isn't what it's going to look like, because if it was, we wouldn't approve it. So it should be professionally done. Show us exactly what the color is and what the font is. And down here, I gave you all the information earlier on what had to be in there if we were going to take that instead of our own plaque, and it's not there. We have to see exactly how you're going to do that, okay?
Right.
So I'm going to suggest, if no one else has an objection, that I will work with James, if he's up for this, and Ray and Aubrey, and we'll come back at the same time we come back with the inn, which is going to be in October, correct, James? Yes. Yeah, and we'll have a nice tight presentation with all the pieces that need, so that we can actually look and see what it is we're approving, and not wonder, and then we go and we look at it, and then you change something else.
And I would suggest that in light of the comments that you've heard today, that you really reconsider whether you include the three, the we, me, us, or whatever it is at the top, because I don't sense a consensus on this group that's going to approve that as it stands now. And I think that if you want to use those strange things, put them down below with the words that you're putting, so that they reinforce that, or just eliminate them and let the words speak for themselves, would be my suggestion. But again, that's another issue that we are still undecided on, and will be a feature that we'll be deciding upon at the next meeting.
I agree. I think that makes perfect sense, and the last 6 weeks or whatever, we've been so focused on a lot, it's a very complex piece,
Sure.
and I think you're right. Those things do need to be reconsidered. I hear, and there's the words on the top might be problematic,
Okay.
and
Let's close it down.
All right, so James, should we actually move to do this, take a motion and then a vote?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's move.
Okay, so the motion would be that we reconvene the hearing on the changes to the Sane Living public art installation to October, do we have a date?
Can we just say to October? Because it's also,
Okay.
we're going to try to get the in at the
To
same
October.
time.
And I don't think we need to put in the motion that we're going to work
No.
on this with them. Can we do a roll call? Should we do a roll call on this?
Yes. Okay.
Do I have a second to the motion? And
Oh, we need a second to the
I'll
motion.
second the motion.
You do this more often than I do. so.
Okay. Commissioner Merck,
Yes.
Commissioner Hirsch,
Yes.
Commissioner Tosher,
Yes.
Commissioner Addison.
Yes.
And Chair Golden.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to adjourn the meeting, and we'll work with you, and in 3 weeks or so, we'll meet again.
Do we
And-
want to talk about the in just to make sure everybody?
Oh,
is
yeah,
aware?
oh, you know what, I shouldn't have closed the meeting. We have another issue that has nothing to do with sane living. So we want to thank you, Aubrey, and thank you, Ray, and we'll be in
Thanks.
contact with you, James and I.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the other item that we want to talk about today is we just want to, as a CAPA, and I think it's what I folded up for the benches, so can I have my benches? You tore it in half. Can I have yours? Just give me yours.
Yeah, sure.
That's it. Okay. That we also want to consider a time extension through October for the revised farmhouse art project. This was our consideration of the location for benches. And since we met and asked for this to happen around a couple weeks ago, actually now, Phil, the main architect or the main developer, is no longer there. And as a result of that, the consideration of this was stalled. And I felt that it was totally appropriate because they really are coming with the best intentions to complete this, that we should give them the extension without any kind of penalty. So we need a motion to that effect.
I move that we give the inn the required extension due to the change in their circumstances.
Second it.
Okay. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Merck,
Yes.
Commissioner Hirsch,
Yes?
Commissioner Tosher,
Yes.
Commissioner Addison?
Yes.
And Chair Golden?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now,
That's it.
anything else? All right,
That's
now
it.
we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Keep it, I have a copy.
Okay.
Aubrey,
You're
You
gonna
know,
go nicely.
I hate to tell an artist what
I know,
to do, but I think it would be such a mistake to do the color.
I was telling Ray,
Leave it
I like that. It's,
I think
that,
that's-
that,
overthink it.
it's
This
the drop
explains
of
to me
water
why
and
I
the
can't
ripple
do
effect.
this.
Yeah.
And then you're,
You know,
it-
because it really-
it repeats an element of your fountain,
The artist
right? You're gonna have the
focus
drop
and
of water.
We're a
And I'll tell you
prospective
something
audience.
The
else
fountain,
that I
so is
really
that
want
what
us
you
to
were going for
address.
here? And the water, yeah, I like that.
We need to make a requirement that they
That
work
almost
with an
looks
art
like a
consultant.
lotus up
Because I
there.
have been acting as the art consultant. I have met
Oh,
with
the
an
Not
art
that
average
area.
is
At first I
standard.
thought